Ever pondered over the idea if Alexander the Great, one of history's most influential figures, has a presence in the Bible? Welcome to a journey through time, a venture into the annals of history and theology, where we attempt to bring light to this intriguing proposition. Let us commence by introducing the man of the hour, Alexander the Great. Born in Macedonia in the 4th century BC, Alexander, with a life just shy of 3 decades, managed to etch his name deeply into the fabric of world history. A formidable military leader, an ambitious king, and an extraordinary strategist, he succeeded in creating an empire stretching from Greece to Egypt and as far as India. His influence permeated across continents, shaping the course of several civilizations, and his legacy continues to resonate even today. However, our exploration today is not merely about his military triumphs or his vast empire. We are here to examine a different angle, a facet that may not be as widely discussed or recognized. We are here to question, is Alexander the Great present in the most influential book of all time, the Bible? While there's no direct mention of Alexander in the Bible, some scholars believe that certain passages may allude to him. The Bible, a rich tapestry of history, prophecy, and wisdom, has often been scrutinized for its historical accuracy and for possible references to well-known historical figures. Could Alexander the Great, a figure of such colossal historical significance, have his story intertwined with the biblical narrative? Join us as we delve into the life of Alexander the Great and explore the intriguing possibility of his biblical references. As we embark on this journey, we invite you to keep an open mind, to question, to ponder, and to engage with history and theology in ways you might not have before. So, buckle up and let's begin this fascinating exploration. Born in 356 BC to King Philip II of Macedon, Alexander's life was nothing short of extraordinary. As a child, he was tutored by none other than the renowned philosopher Aristotle. This education, combined with his natural intellect, helped mold Alexander into a leader with a keen strategic mind and a thirst for knowledge. Upon the assassination of his father in 336 BC, Alexander ascended to the throne at the tender age of 20. Despite his youth, he swiftly demonstrated his military prowess. His reign, although brief, was marked by a series of impressive military campaigns. Alexander led his armies through Asia and Northeast Africa, creating one of the largest empires the world had ever seen, all before he reached the age of 30. His military genius was extraordinary. Alexander was known for his innovative battle strategies and his ability to inspire his troops. His armies, often outnumbered, would emerge victorious due to his tactical brilliance. Alexander's most notable victory was perhaps at the Battle of Gaugamela, where he defeated the Persian king Darius III and solidified his control over the Persian Empire. But Alexander's impact extended beyond conquests. He was a driving force behind the spread of Greek culture across his empire, a period known as the Hellenistic Age. From Egypt to India, the influence of Greek language, art, and philosophy permeated these lands, creating a lasting cultural legacy. Despite his early death at the age of 32, Alexander's life was a whirlwind, filled with remarkable achievements. His military genius, his vast empire, and the cultural fusion he initiated all mark him as one of history's most notable figures. Yet his life was not just about victories and empire building. Alexander was also a man of vision, who sought to create a unified world, a brotherhood of mankind, as he often put it. Alexander's life was a whirlwind of victories and conquest, but could his story have found its way into the Bible? The Bible, a book of faith and prophecy, might hold more connections to Alexander than we think. Delving into the prophetic books of the Bible, we find intriguing passages that may well have been speaking about Alexander the Great and his empire. Let's turn our attention to the book of Daniel, one of the major prophetic books of the Old Testament. In this book, we encounter a vision of a he-goat with a notable horn between his eyes, charging from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. This goat, as described in the prophecy, becomes exceedingly great, but at the height of its power, the large horn is broken off, and in its place, 4 notable horns grow up toward the 4 winds of heaven. What does this peculiar prophecy mean? Some scholars believe that this he-goat symbolizes none other than Alexander the Great himself. The notable horn signifies his remarkable leadership, while charging from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground, could represent Alexander's swift and widespread conquests. But what about the 4 notable horns that grow after the large horn is broken? Remember, after Alexander's untimely death, his vast empire was divided among his 4 generals, known in history as the Diadochi. These four divisions of his empire could well be represented by the four winds of heaven mentioned in the prophecy. It's fascinating to ponder. Are these passages purely coincidental, or could they be prophetic glimpses into the life and legacy of one of history's most influential leaders? While there's no definitive proof, the parallels in the narrative are too compelling to dismiss outright. Could these prophecies have foretold the rise and fall of Alexander the Great? The interpretations are compelling. Alexander's conquest undeniably left a mark on the lands mentioned in the Bible. This energetic Macedonian king, in his short span of life, ventured far and wide, leaving behind a legacy that's still palpable today, especially in the biblical lands of Egypt and Persia. Let's start with Egypt. Alexander arrived in Egypt in 333 BCE, where he was welcomed as a liberator. During his time in Egypt, he founded the city of Alexandria, which later became an epicenter of culture, learning, and Hellenistic influence. It's here in this melting pot of ideas and cultures that scholars believe the Septuagint, the Greek version of the Hebrew Bible, was created. This was no small thing. The creation of the Septuagint made the Hebrew Bible accessible to a much wider audience, spreading its teachings far and wide. Next, we journey to Persia. Alexander's conquest of the Persian Empire marked the end of its rule and the beginning of Greek influence. The Persian Empire, which had been a significant power in the region, was now under the sway of Hellenistic culture. This shift would have undoubtedly affected the Jewish communities living there, perhaps even influencing their religious practices and beliefs. But Alexander's influence wasn't just limited to these two regions. His empire stretched across vast territories from Greece to Egypt, and from Asia Minor to India. His policy of cultural fusion, often referred to as Hellenization, brought about a blending of Greek and local cultures. This cross-cultural pollination had a profound impact on the customs, languages, and philosophies of these regions. Despite the cultural shifts and changes brought about by Alexander's reign, it's important to remember that these changes were not always peaceful or welcomed. There were resistances, rebellions, and a great deal of upheaval. Yet through it all, the Hellenistic influence persisted, shaping the biblical lands in ways that would have lasting effects for centuries to come. Alexander's touch on these lands is undeniable, but does this make him a character in the Bible's narrative? As we delve deeper into this question in the next scene, remember that history is often a complex weave of events, influences, and interpretations. We've journeyed through the life of Alexander the Great, explored biblical prophecies, and looked at his influence on biblical lands. Now, we arrive at the central question: does Alexander the Great actually appear in the Bible? Let's revisit our main points. We've discussed how Alexander's life and reign were monumental, leaving an indelible mark on history. We've considered the prophetic mentions that some believe point to Alexander, notably in the books of Daniel and Zechariah. We've also explored how his conquests significantly influenced biblical lands, reshaping the cultural and political landscape of the time. The arguments for Alexander's presence in the Bible are intriguing. The prophetic mentions, while not naming Alexander directly, describe a powerful king from the west who would conquer the world, a description that fits Alexander's life remarkably well. Furthermore, his influence on biblical lands cannot be denied, with his Hellenistic culture permeating the region. However, the case against Alexander's biblical presence is equally compelling. The Bible, despite its extensive historical accounts, never mentions Alexander by name. The prophetic mentions are open to interpretation, and many scholars believe they refer to other historical figures or events. The influence of Alexander's reign on biblical lands, though profound, doesn't necessarily equate to his personal presence in biblical texts. This fascinating discussion invites us all to delve deeper into history, biblical texts, and the power of interpretation. It encourages us to question, to explore, and to form our own understanding of the past. It reminds us that history isn't always clear-cut, that it's often a tapestry of perspectives and interpretations. So, is Alexander the Great in the Bible? The answer isn't straightforward. It depends on how one reads the biblical texts and interprets the historical context. It's a question that continues to inspire debate among scholars and enthusiasts alike. Whether or not Alexander the Great is in the Bible remains a topic of debate, but one thing is for sure: